Hello Joburgers, and welcome to another exciting show of Joburg Today, and I'm your host, Raymond Mariku. The Sexpo 2016 is open for business. It is the largest event of its kind in Southern Africa and draws thousands to inquire into what has become a very lucrative industry. In the run-up to the event, we chatted to Professor Elna McIntosh on sexual issues that plague many right here in Johannesburg.
Professor Elna McIntosh, what a big pleasure to have you with us today. Your job is so interesting because you get to heal people by counseling them on very sensitive issues and controversial issues like sexuality, which is why we brought you in today to talk about sex.
According to Maslow, Maslow has this hierarchy of needs, and in the bottom shelf, he says we need food, we need oxygen, we need a roof over our heads, we need water, and we need sex. So according to Maslow's needs, it is very important. Mm-hmm. But for a lot of people, it is difficult to actually make the phone call and say, there's something wrong in our private lives. People also use interesting terms sometimes when they phone. I specialize in painful intercourse, and so some of my patients, the condition's called vaginismus, and when they come and see us, they've actually never had sexual intercourse. And the longest I've seen is an 18-year marriage. And when they finally got there, I said, why now? You've waited this long, you might as well, you're doing well without it.
Sure.
But they wanted children.
Yeah.
But they lived in this shame and silence. And I think for a lot of people, that's how it goes.
Why do you think we have these issues? Is there a link between mental health and sexual health?
So I think the church, the schools, religion, your family plays a very big role. Mm-hmm. Our biggest organ really is our skin. Touch is our first sense to develop. Mm-hmm. When that baby is born, this is my mother, her touch is soft. But through our skin we learn. And if you're being abused, if your mother burns you with cigarettes, it's going to cause other issues and other things.
Yeah.
But in our birth family is really where we learn about touch. You're either the huggy, feely family or you're the leave me alone family.
Okay.
And so a lot of issues when people come is about touch, about intimacy, not actually about sex. Because if we say the word sex, well, there's so many different categories of that. Are we man, woman, or maybe even intersexed? Are we talking about gender?
Sure.
Are we talking...
Our sexuality is linked to gender as well. There are all sorts of issues out there, and you've brought up a very important point. Do you think it's important, and I'm talking about the carnal aspect of sex, do you think it's important to be in a loving, nurturing relationship to really explore that intimacy? Because today there's so many diverse views out there. I mean, we're liberal as a society, and it does not necessarily relate to committed relationships these days. What are your thoughts on that?
So I think in any relationship, and again, if we look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, he says we need to have that sense of loving and belonging, and we need to feel safe. And all of those steps are really important. In today's fast society, people are on Tinder and Grindr and all sorts of fast apps and meet people and have sex and move on. So one-night stands so people have hookups and breakups. And we would think we'd live in an AIDS-free society. Because HIV, and we're now in our 32nd year of having AIDS conferences, talking about AIDS, it's almost that people forget, well, that's something that's, it's there. And,
sure.
And so one of my big things that is, for me is so important is sexual health.
Yeah.
So in order to be great, to feel intimate, to feel safe, is about health. Because if I'm not sure about your HIV status, or you're not sure about mine, and it is interesting how people seem to worry about HIV, but not about the other 26 sexually transmitted diseases.
Sure, that's very interesting. So you would say that love plays an important part as well for us to engage sexually or not?
A very important part.
You deal with a lot of marriages. I know a lot of married couples that are struggling to reignite their sexual relations, and I'm thinking that if you're married to someone for 15 to 20 years, you're most likely to get bored sexually. I mean, have you reached breakthroughs with some of the people that you work with where they can actually reignite their sex lives and have great sex again and be playful?
So a lot of people, we work hard, we play hard, and so time. So I always talk about the 4 T's in a relationship. They stand for time, trust, talk, and touch. And they're almost, for me, the 4 little legs that this marriage must stand on. And then there's another one, tidiness. But I just always throw that in because some women are obsessed with tidiness.
Yeah.
She's first got to clean that whole house. Everything must be spick and span before she's coming to the bedroom.
Yeah.
But we don't have time. And if we, women, if we're really angry, we go, don't touch me. We literally put a no entry sign here.
We
don't come near me.
internalize things. We tend to internalize things.
And we're angry and you're not helping me and all of these. But for a lot of people, the talk part, the communication part is probably the hardest. Because, again, we don't learn about how do we talk about sex. When a relationship starts, we talk literally about everything. Who was your grade 1 teacher? Where did you go to school? What is your favorite movie? But when it comes to, okay, so the first time we're going to have sex, are we going to wait till we're married? What are the pros? What are the cons? Are you on a contraceptive? So again, it takes me back to sexual health. If we are not sexually healthy, and sexual health encompasses quite a lot of things, but if we are also not very secure in our bodies.
Yeah, that's a very important point, because that, when you're saying sexual health, what comes to my mind is self-esteem, self-confidence, being secure in ourselves, being congruent with who we are.
Because if you have a good self-esteem, and this is why I feel so strongly about women, that we encourage them. They need to not feel, oh, well, I'm almost forced to have this sex, or it becomes a transaction. If we have sex, you've got to give me money, you've got to buy me new hairstyles, you've got to buy me sunglasses. Women need to be empowered to say, no condom, no sex tonight.
Sure.
Because what we also see is in relationships, the HIV epidemic is fueled in relationships. Because once people are in a relationship, they then go, well, now we don't have to actually worry about HIV anymore. And earlier I spoke about infidelity and how people have multiple partners.
Sure. Increasing role pornography plays when people turn to pornography for stimulation. There's so much out there when it comes to opinion around this. A lot of psychologists feel it can be very detrimental to sexual relations with your partner. What is your view there?
What do I think about pornography? You know what? For some people, it's a turn on. I look at it and I think, oh, her feet are so dirty. And I can hear a lawnmower in the background. I think it's homemade. And so it does play a role for some people.
Can it destroy relationships?
A lot of people, especially for women, it can make them feel very insecure.
Yeah.
So remember, there's a play acting.
Is it like you're cheating on your partner? It can be perceived because you're looking at somebody else and you're enjoying that.
If he's looking at it and I'm not there with him. And so for a lot of women, if they look at it, it's not always a turn on. And I think this is the discussion what we must have.
So advise, do pornography in private.
If you're going to do it.
Because it's becoming a reality, a norm.
I prefer, when I work with couples that are in trouble, I say, please put that away. And put it really deep away so that your children don't find it either. Because for a lot of young children, that's their first introduction to sex, is actually finding the porn in the cupboard or somewhere.
This is such an interesting topic. I just could go on endlessly.
But
so
next to the porn
is
the sex toys, which also causes a problem. So
I'm coming to that. I'm coming to that in a moment. I just want to go quickly back to what you said earlier about religion and culture. Would you say these are barriers? I mean, this is a very diverse country, South Africa. Would you say that they're actually barriers to understanding and exploring our sexuality? How should we approach that? How should we approach the cultural aspects of our sexuality?
We need to talk to our children. And I always use the example, if you haven't by 8, it is too late. And not meaning, oh, well, they're 10 now, I can forget about it. What I mean is, by 8, your child can read and write. They are smart. You just have to drive down the road and see all the headlines. Shocking. There is sex almost, wherever I stop, I see things. If you're in the aisle to pay at the till, there are magazines, and most of the female magazines have got 10 tricks here and something there, and so your kids are reading these. So it's no good saying we're going to keep them ignorant, then they will remain innocent. Because how would your child know if it's being abused? If they don't know wrong from right. So a 2-year-old will have a very different sex education than a 14-year-old. So a 2-year-old, you already have to start teaching, this is your body, only mommy and daddy washes it, or Auntie Mary is allowed to. Because a 2-year-old's time frame span is probably 5 seconds anyway. But to start teaching your child about genitals, and which is quite sad, because let me tell you, a 2-year-old is an exhibitionist. Boy or girl, they love nudity, and they love to show off their genitals. And
they're so okay with their sexuality. They're unaware, but they're just okay.
Yeah. And then we already have to instill almost fear in them. And that's the fine line. Are we going to talk about the birds and bees, or are we going to do the hornets and the vultures? It's, and as they get older, so almost age appropriate. We have to speak to the 9-year-old girl about her menstruation, because from about age 9 nowadays, young girls start their menstruation. That she doesn't think she's dying, that she doesn't get second-hand information from somebody. I still believe it's the parents' role.
Yeah. I want to come back to the toys.
The toys.
We've got the Sexpo coming up, and you're an active participant at the Sexpo. How should Joburg residents approach this, what I would call an exciting event?
So I'm going to say with an open mind.
Sure.
Because Sexpo is like the Rand Easter show, but for sex. So yes, for us it's an exciting event, but for a lot of people this might be the first time that they ever actually it's almost like an overdose of just everything is sexual. And then there's always somebody selling cell phone covers, but they go to all expos anyway. But and so that's nothing sexy about that. But there will be, it's an ideal, wonderful time to actually learn.
Yeah.
And if you want to shop, you're free to shop as well. But the people that are going to have their stands there are going to have different sex toys. Half the time I have to have an education as well beforehand, because sex toys just evolve all the time. There's new products, new things coming out. I always just warn, if you're going to buy pills and lotions and potions, always just test it out on your arm, maybe first, and see you're not allergic to things. But there'll be a lot of nudity or semi-nudity, and maybe it's important to see, how do I react when I suddenly see all this nudity? The artist Picasso always get a lot of attention. So he's an Australian artist, and he does caricatures, and he'll do a portrait. You'll be sitting there, but he'll just be painting it with his penis.
Very fascinating topic. I need at least 2 more decades to continue this conversation with you. But for now, thank you very much for your time. Thank you. It was really nice having you with us.
Thank you.
Well, what are you waiting for? Join the conversation on our social media platforms. On Twitter, it's @Joburg Today, and like our Facebook page, that's joburgtoday.tv. As the saying goes, the higher you go, the colder it gets. The same can be said about life with a city like Johannesburg. The hustle and bustle can result in health being left on the back burner. Your health can also affect your sexual health.
Now, although the final product's going to look pretty good, ask anyone in the media industry and they'll tell you 3 things. It's about pressure, it's about no social life, and deadlines.
Leroy, my guy,
Hey, what's up?
Listen, here's the research for the story that we're doing next week. Just read through it, tell me if you're unclear about anything. The questions are on page 3, and yeah, we're doing it next week, Tuesday at 2 o'clock.
All right, got it. Thanks. A regular visit to my doctor is something I don't want to miss. The city life can be taxing on my body, and the pressures at work can have an effect on my health.
Hey Doc, I got a question for you. Is it presumptuous of me to assume that people know about blood pressure? And if so, why?
Well, unfortunately, I don't think that enough people know about blood pressure. It's something that hasn't necessarily been publicized enough to the wider public, particularly to younger people. So I think that we need to really up the game and raise awareness.
So what is blood pressure?
Blood pressure really is the pressure that you measure inside the arteries, and that comes from your heart pumping blood throughout your body.
And what's the safe range for someone to actually have normal blood pressure?
An ideal blood pressure for any adult is less than 120 over 80. The region that we start to worry about is if your blood pressure goes above that range. So anywhere above 130, 140 systolic, and above 90 diastolic.
So why is it that there's been a sudden increase in the number of within the youth, that is, who are actually suffering from high blood pressure?
The answer is really twofold. The one is that it may just be that we're picking up younger people with high blood pressure in and amongst other examinations that we're doing in them. The other issue is that due to lots of lifestyle changes, lots of westernized lifestyle, we're finding that we're getting a lot more hypertension patients in young adults.
And how does that then affect the body?
So the risks of high blood pressure, particularly when you've had it untreated for a very long time, it increases the risk of heart disease, strokes, all the things that you'd really associate with much older populations, but these things can actually happen in younger patients, and also kidney disease.
So what are the signs and symptoms to look out for?
Okay, so the majority of people with high blood pressure don't know that they have high blood pressure because there are no symptoms. So that's why it's called the silent killer. So oftentimes people just walk around and they feel absolutely normal. By the time that they start having symptoms like severe headaches or palpitations or blurred vision, then you know that your blood pressure is exceedingly high, where it's probably a hypertensive emergency, and you really want to catch patients before they get to that range.
So how often should someone actually consult a physician just to manage and maintain a normal lifestyle?
Okay. I'd recommend probably once a year, just to have an annual physical, make sure that everything is okay, also get the right dietary advice, lifestyle advice like exercise and that kind of thing. Probably once a year is enough.
When you talk about dietary change, what exactly does that entail?
So the main things that one needs to do is try and limit your intake of salt. Try and make sure that if you are going to have red meat, you have a maximum of 2 servings a week.
Only 2?
Only 2. And also try not to have very oily food. So if you're going to be preparing any food, make sure that you remove all visible fat. Don't fry your food, grill it or steam it, and that's really enough to maintain a healthy lifestyle.
I'm Leroy, man about town.
I'm John Terode, and you're watching Joburg Today.
For more news on the city about the sights and sounds of Johannesburg, do check out our playlist. That's all from me, Ray, and the rest of the Joburg Today crew. It's goodbye.